And so I want Jamaica to understand that this administration intends to carry out your mandate and execute the policies that you elected us to execute without the interference or deliberate frustration of the opposition. The opposition has its role. Some people say it is to oppose everything and propose nothing. That is the classic conventional opposition. But can Jamaica afford that kind of politics? I think that the modern politics has to have space for collaboration, for cooperation. It has to have space for marking out certain areas and say these areas are in the national interest and we must work together on those. We mustn't put those at the risk of partisan competitive politics. I believe the modern politics must be constructive and not destructive. You must seek to build. Yes, there is always the role of the watchdog to make sure that government doesn't go into excess, to ensure that there is transparency and that we fight against corruption. But in doing so, it must not be that we seek to tear down everything that is being built by the government. So I want to say to the people of Jamaica that this government will not be distracted. There is a lot of work to be done. And this government is not only doing the work that it was elected to do, but we also have to be doing the work that the PNP were elected several decades ago to do and didn't do. So this government is catching up on what was supposed to be done, plus doing what it was elected to do. What is baffling them and what they can't understand and why they are getting so nervous is that they see the authority, the power, and the instruments and representation of the Jamaican state slipping away from them. What is bothering them, what is irking them, is that they cannot understand how we can, in 2.5 years, accomplish so many things, what they were trying to do in their 24 years. So, we made a commitment to the people of this country to address their security. And again, only by way of reference, my heart goes out to the family of this teenager, young girl that was brutally abducted and raped in Kingston. Our murder rate is going down. Crimes generally is going down. Our policies and strategies are working. But I don't take it for granted any time at all that the criminal intent is still there. That there are persons who are organized criminals, but then there are persons in our midst who are just violent, brutal people. Over the weekend, I learned of a disturbing stabbing of a member of G2K. Again, over issues that you would describe as purely petty. But yet, to resolve those issues, we resort to violence. We are not going to, in any way, ease up on our crime fighting strategy. But we are going to parallel that with a strategy to deal with violence in our country. So I want to send a clear message now that the government of Jamaica, though we are seeing good results, now is not the time for us to pull up stumps, to back off, to ease up. Now is the time that the government of Jamaica must redouble our efforts, because we do have the criminal gangs, the organized underworld on the run, and we must chase those crazy criminals out of town.
Bad boys, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when they come for you? Bad boys, what you gonna do?
I want to close my presentation to you tonight, because some of you are going back some distance. And I want to say that the Jamaica Labour Party is the party of education. Now is back to school time. And I know that families are having it still very difficult to send their children to school. The government has made it easier, no question. And I want to repeat for parents, send your children to school. No school can turn back your child if they cannot afford the auxiliary fees. Sometimes the conversation around school fees, sometimes it becomes confused. Some of you may not remember that there was a period of time when there was something called tuition fees. So you had tuition fees which the government charged, and then you have auxiliary fees which the school charged. Under the PNP government, then led by PJ Patterson, a decision was made to split the tuition fee 50-50, and that was called cost sharing. There was a possibility of paying less than the 50% as a parent if you went through something called a means test. So parents would have to come to school, explain their circumstances, and then they may be assessed either 0% of the fee, 25% of the fee, or 50%. Now, can you imagine parents turning up to school, the embarrassment for their children? The Jamaica Labour Party saw that, and we made a commitment That why go through all this gymnastics? Education is like a vaccine. Everybody must have it. It's the vaccine against illiteracy. It's the vaccine against violence. It's the vaccine against poverty. And if some people don't have it, then you're going to have poverty, violence, and illiteracy in your society. So we say, give everybody the vaccine of education. Give them free. So we removed the tuition fee. And we didn't just say, all right, as of today, there is no more tuition. I was Minister of Education at the time. And I remember sitting down with the then Permanent Secretary in the Ministry, calculating what the government would have to pay to the schools. Because we were already paying 50%. So we would now pay an additional 50%. And we gave that money to the schools, the high schools, every year, from then till now. So the schools don't lose their tuition fee. That's not the case. They get that every year in the budget. And they get it quite early. Now, we gave guidance to the schools about the auxiliary fees. Because what happened is, as soon as we removed the tuition fee, we noticed that auxiliary fees started to creep up and replace tuition. So we gave some guidance. I recall as Minister of Education, we would say fees should not exceed a certain amount, or sometimes fees should not increase by more than a certain percentage. But we made it very clear that the auxiliary fees under the no tuition policy, the auxiliary fees are non-obligatory, meaning that you are under no obligation whatsoever to pay them. And no school can deny your child the education that they deserve. Now I want you to understand this point very carefully, because it's not a simple issue. But I want you to understand the point that I'm about to make. Your child is placed in a school. Sometimes the child does well and might pass for a school that they can't afford. What we do with those children? Turn them away? No. So the government has said, and we make the point again on the platform here, that the PTAs must work with the schools. And the PTAs must work with the schools and help to set the fees. And as a community and cooperative effort, you come together and make a contribution. We don't want to take that spirit out of education. And we encourage parents, if you can, make the payment or make part of the payment, make your contribution. I have said before, and it is not an idle threat, that it should be a law in Jamaica that no child should be discriminated against by virtue of their economic status. Sending home a child or denying a child access to education because they cannot pay the auxiliary fee is discrimination against the child based upon economic circumstances. So as we are gathered here talking about politics, education is also politics. And we must, as a people, if we want to move from poverty to prosperity, we must send our children to school. And there must be no obstacle for that. So I beg you, come first Monday in September when your child is ready for school. Don't make any economic circumstance where you can't pay the auxiliary fee make you not send your picnic to school. Send your child to school. And if any school turn back any child, you just let me know. Or anybody here as your representative, just let me know. We don't want to create any division in education. Education must be a national effort. And as one of our Jamaican poet puts it, if education is the key, then how them a make it so expensive for we? So, my Jamaica Labour Party friends, my family, my Jamaican brothers and sisters, it was my great and distinct pleasure to have addressed you tonight. You have been a wonderful audience. You have sat and listened carefully, taking in all the points that I have made. And I know that you will go back tomorrow to your places of work. Some of you who go to imbibe at the bars. Some of you who go to the market to sell or to buy. And those of you who will be traveling in the taxis and public transportation, I want you to take the message to the people. Send your picnic to school, no matter what. Jamaica Labour Party is for agriculture, and we're going to grow the economy starting with agriculture. And the Jamaica Labour Party, your government that you have elected, is not distracted by the bad mind PNP. We are doing our work, and we are doing their work that they didn't do. And by the grace of God and the hard work, sweat, faithfulness and dedication of the people, we will move Jamaica from poverty to prosperity. JLP cares for Jamaica. God bless you. I love you. Go home safely until I see you again. God bless you. But before you go, it gives me great pleasure to present the new candidate